right? It's easy to look at somebody else and think they have more agency over their situation, or they have a skill, a talent that you can't acquire, right? Like that's LeBron James, he's this tall, or that person is so much bigger, or they went to this school, they came from this, instead of saying, what is your thing?
It's the extended remix. And now we're going to turn it over to Alicia to answer those same two questions. Number one, what was the biggest takeaway that you wanted people to get from your podcast episode? And then ultimately, what was the thing that we had to cut out that you wish we could have left in?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with overarching theme. I think my sweet spot with coaching is connecting with people that are former athletes. So that was the place that I came from, and it was just kind of the Candace's point. You have a thought and you have an original inspiration, and then as you're doing the research, it kind of gets bigger. Like which are most things I personally feel like whatever you concentrate on, it is that law of attraction, right? So this just kind of fell in my lap of doing, checking into the call map, getting that from hearing that actual, I think I would say it's an episode, right? Of with James. And it just really, like, I would have to say my life as an athlete just flashed before my eyes, right? Because at that time as a young girl, it was so easy. And I didn't have the verbiage for it, but like knowing what it looked like as a runner to walk up to the line and be able to pretty much X out all of my opponents, right? So it's 8 lanes. You're figuring out one by one who's not going to take you out. You're thinking about each part of the race, what I need to do at this point, what skill I need to apply at this direct point, the confidence I had in myself on, I know I can do this because I've done it before and here's where I am. And training helps you do that. So as he was talking about people being kind of enamored with this prowess that he has, I thought what I would hope people would take away is like you own that as well, right? It's easy to look at somebody else and think they have more agency over their situation, or they have a skill, not a skill, a talent that you can't acquire, right? Like that's LeBron James, he's this tall, or that person is so much bigger, or they went to this school, they came from this, instead of saying, what is your thing, right? And I felt like that's what I took away from it. And then that's what caused just the research and me going through all of the athletes to see how nobody even thought about that, right? And that's where, and I know we'll get into it later, but I think that's also where I want people is to get into that zone. So that's what I hope people took away, is that these aren't these super powerful people, right? All of them had humble beginnings. They have different setbacks, failures, and successes, but we remember the good. And I hope you can do that for yourself. And I think that, that takes me to the last part, which, Jamila, like we went back and forth for the last bit that I had on there that I was like, okay, take this out. Because she'll tell you every week I get to about like 8 minutes and I'll be like, oh Lord, and some of it is editing out of pauses of constant mistakes, but then you just get in a moment of like being led that they got to get this, right? Like I got to say this week. And at the end, that was just really what that affirmation was around. Like you haven't met everybody that's going to help you get there. And I think in our careers, we can think about that as a skill or a position or a mentor, a person. And I think for me, and this is just what I've been coaching a lot on and seeing, is that there's this almost parental dependence that people have on their boss or their job, right? And I would just want and I think if you can abandon that your boss or your job is not your mom, they're not your dad. You don't need their approval, right? And it's not a person, it's like a building, right? Like it's this, if you can see, if you think about it, as I actually haven't met all the resources, I haven't met all the people that are going to root for you. I think when you get in those dark moments emotionally, you can snap. I won't say you can snap out of it, but you can be rest assured that it's not final. So that was like, we edited out, then it came back and it was there. So I don't know if it kind of flowed in there, but that was the part that I was just like, from an editing standpoint.
Right. So when you sent me your podcast and you sent me a few notes, when I got to that portion of the podcast, I had forgotten that note. And at that point, I had basically pressed the print sealed and it was done. It was locked and loaded. And so I reached back out to you because we were going over the actual title for that episode and saying, okay, is it this? Is it that? And we finally got to the title of the episode. And I realized at that moment, oh my gosh, out of nowhere, it hit me. I forgot to take that part out. and you were like, it was supposed to be in there. That's exactly what was supposed to be in there. So I think that's pretty cool how that process happened. In this case, it actually got to stay in the episode, which again, like Candace's trust, the bonus T. It's like, man, how do you keep it all in there, because there's so much we want to share, and that one just happened to make it by default. Guy made it so that it would make it into that podcast. So phenomenal points, Alicia. Incredible episode, as well as Candace. Now I wish we could like go back and record it again. As I'm sitting here listening to the conversation, I'm sitting here saying, maybe we could just edit the podcast for anybody that goes to
But
listen to it
you know
right
what?
now.
But I think people can resonate with, like, how many times have you done an interview, right? And you got to tell about yourself, right? And most of us at this point have this long history, right? And
Right.
you can't wrap up 10 years, 20 years, for some 30, 40 in 5 minutes of who are you, right? And that's what we're
Right.
doing every week, right? It's this subject that's been baking and, developing all these years, and you got 5 minutes.
That's
And you,
it.
you you don't always get that go back, and you don't, but it hopefully somebody's inspired, and as you watch this, of like, just do it ugly sometimes, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's what we have to do every week. Or it may not be wrapped in a bow, but it doesn't have to be, right? There's
Right.
still something that you can get out of it.
Absolutely. And I believe that keeping it, our concept of the podcast in general, to keep it to 5 minutes really fits what's happening currently in society, in culture, in the US. We don't have as much time, so we think, right? To kind of do everything that there is to do. So our goal is to just get you something to chew on, something to act on, and something to reflect on, and move forward in your life, move forward in your career, move forward in your compensation every week, versus maybe that's 3 hours, 4 hours, or taking a class, which those things are very important, right? Those things are very important, but sometimes you just need a little piece to keep the path, the journey, everything you're trying to accomplish going. So yeah, I still want to edit those podcasts and reload them. For anyone that's listening, and you'll see a link to go listen to the episodes that we're discussing. That's episode 37 through 40: career fitness, rest, mental fitness training, and your hard drive.
Hey, did you set some lofty goals for yourself this year? I mean, really big goals? Well, guess what? You're not alone. Let me tell you what the top 3 areas most of our clients come to us for: promotions, how to get more money, and how do I make a career change. And guess what the commonality is between all three asks? How do I do it fast? Don't give up. Keep dreaming big and let the 5 Minute Career Hack team help you get there with the In Transit Workshop. Check out the link and you can sign up today.
Tune in for part 3 next Tuesday.